Hello, welcome to Truth Not Tradition online Bible study for April 15th, 2015. I'm Tony Samario, here with my father, Brother Sal. Good morning, Dad.
Oh, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. As you reminded me, it's tax day, so we should probably be talking about civil disobedience. But instead, I just wanted to keep, I've been combing through some of the Old Testament prophets and for a vision of what's going on. Remember, Paul said, when the Jews and Gentiles say peace and safety, sudden destruction comes on them. The prophecy of Daniel is the timing that the sealed of the one prophecy that says, the angel tells him, seal this, for it concerns the time of the end. So suddenly being able to make sense of Daniel has always led us to believe that prophecy is unsealed. Therefore, we're in the time of the end. Therefore, we're watching, as Paul said, for the Jews and Gentiles, as they've been saying peace and safety now for 15 years. How that's all coming about and why. And I find the answers aren't really in the New Testament so much. The New Testament, of course, to the Christians is that new deal that we're not under the law, but a law of grace now. We're under a new covenant, and that's been illuminated over and over and over. The covenant of salvation is not something we need to. I don't think it needs so much more teaching to illuminate what that means. Jesus, the perfect sacrifice, died to pay the ransom for humanity. We all understand that, and it's laid out in its different ways. When I talk about the New Testament, it's to point out all the real instruction that Christians are given and the example that's left for them, and the fact that the real truth of the New Testament seems to be to point for Christians is that we don't live like the church is supposed to live. We don't show Jesus to the world the way the early church did, in the same manner that the Jews weren't prepared for Messiah when he came to them, because they weren't demonstrating what the law had laid down for them. In fact, so the Old Testament prophets help us see this whole picture and how it gets derailed and where it gets derailed and what the prophecies are about it coming down through time, and the ones that have been fulfilled in their time, such as when the tribes were taken into bondage, first to the northern tribes into Assyria, and then the southern tribes by Nebuchadnezzar into Judah. And that's when Daniel starts prophesying as a prisoner, or at least a captive in Judah. Of Judah in Babylon, and so I'm trying to help Christians see how both sides of these testaments, both sides of this Bible of ours, are interlaced. They're all relating to the same story as it's come down through time. And even though the Jews don't accept Jesus, they're still waiting for the Messiah and living out the crimes and punishments of the Old Testament. Now, the New Testament's under a different paradigm, if you will, a different foundation, but it's the same cycle is what I've been trying to get at. It's the same human involvement. We've fallen from the height, just like the Jews have. We've just already aware of the saving grace. But they are to a point as well. Look at Roy Newberger. He knows the Messiah is coming, and as long as he has faith, God's going to save him and the people that are waiting for the Messiah, no matter how wrong they've gone. So the story is really the same on all counts. So what are we trying to learn as a Christian? Well, for me, there's two things. What is going on today that I am in the text of the context of what Paul seems to envision for the church. Watch. watch and be sober. Watch, pay attention that the Lord's going to come for them like a thief. And they're not going to be paying attention. It's going to be a time when they say peace and safety, but you, brethren, you're not of the darkness. You're of the light, that day should overtake you like a thief. So, we're supposed to be aware of that day. And so the Old Testament is where that day, and this is one of those things we talked about the last couple of weeks, I think, where I notice how each of the prophets takes their own viewpoint, their own perspective on what they're seeing. And some of them are seeing the moment that's coming. We went through Micah, and who was dealing with the coming Assyrian invasion, and Amos as well. They had the Assyrians that were still coming for them because they lived at a time before the Assyrian invasion. And God was telling them that, yeah, you're living high on the hog and you think you're rich, but you guys, you're worshiping idols mostly. If you read Hosea, which now is a contemporary of Amos, a little bit before Micah, and these are Amos and Hosea prophesying to the northern tribes of Israel, where Micah was prophesying to Judah, but they're both somewhat contemporaries, Micah coming a little later, but Hosea and Amos were contemporaries, both prophesying to Israel, both saying, Hosea in such drastic terms, that you're a wife that's like a prostitute to me. And so I'm divorcing you, and you go ahead and go off with all your lovers and go prostitute yourself. But then he tells them, but then go marry her again. And you're going to be known as I'll be your husband this time rather than your master. Okay, so this is all this future restoration when he marries the bride and they become his faithful wife again. So that hasn't happened yet, but that's in Hosea, and it's in between. You have all this destruction coming.
And this is what I like about the study, the way you're approaching it, is that what we started out to do and what we are still doing is making Revelation easier to understand.
Yes, a lot of this is simply to give that light to Revelation, which is the time where, it's all, this is where I'm going with it today, I suppose. What I noticed in reading these Old Testament prophets is that you have a couple like Nahum and Habakkuk that seem to stay more in the moment. They seem to be literally having a vision of what's coming soon, in the sense of in Nahum's case to Judah with Nebuchadnezzar, and Habakkuk as well. The coming punishment that's immediate and carried out immediately. And you don't find in those books too much, although I'm not going to say that you don't have parallels and shadows that are cast that have to do with the future. I mean, that's what I'm seeing. It's always Assyria and Nineveh. This is the enemy, right? And then Edom and Moab, it's the way they treated Israel. It's the way they treated the brother. It's the way they took advantage. But Assyria is the king of the north, the representative of this evil king, this evil kingdom. And so what you have in Nahum and Habakkuk is this immediate pronouncement, for the most part, on what's coming on them and why. And in Habakkuk's case, the answer to the question, why does God use, and why would he use an even more evil nation to punish the evil of his children? Why would he use someone that's even further to the one side or the other to punish his own children? So, and you don't find in those books the words "in that day," in the day of the Lord, in that great day, interestingly enough. Whereas throughout the other prophets, Hosea and Isaiah, people that have longer, more protracted prophecies, seem to be able to go in and out of what's going to happen to them, and then they see it all the way through to an end, and they bring in that end vision and say, in that day, and you have to watch where you flow from talking about something that's applicable to the people of some near future that are about to go into captivity, and something that's got to do with the final restoration. But I find, for instance, I wanted today to touch on two of these shorter prophets which speak almost exclusively of in that day. It's like what they're seeing is my people are about to be punished, but what their vision of it is the eventual punishment and restoration. And the two that I wanted to look at, we'll start with one anyway and see if I can get to two. But I thought I keep pronouncing it the Spanish name, Joel, pronounced in Spanish Joel. But the prophecy of Joel. So if you have a Bible, Joel's short and sweet. He's at the back of Hosea. This is now before either of the kingdoms have gone into exile with anybody, and in fact, this is following Solomon, David and Solomon, when the kingdoms have sway still over their neighbors. They enjoy the autonomy of being their own kingdoms, and have now come down through what the Kings and Chronicles show, or the different wicked leaders of them. And so now you come down into this, say, mid 800s BC, in the time of Joel, and the word of the Lord that came to Joel, son of Pethuel. Hear this, you elders. Listen, all who live in the land. Has anything like this ever happened in your days or in the days of your forefathers? Tell it to your children, and let your children tell it to their children, and their children to the next generation. What the locust swarm has left, the great locusts have eaten. What the great locusts have left, the young locusts have eaten. What the young locusts have left, other locusts have eaten. Wake up, you drunkards, and weep. Wail, all you drinkers of wine. Wail because of the new wine, for it has been snatched from your lips. A nation has invaded my land, powerful and without number. It has the teeth of a lion, the fangs of a lioness. It has laid waste my vines and ruined my fig trees. It has stripped off their bark and thrown it away, leaving their branches white. Mourn like a virgin in sackcloth, grieving for the husband of her youth. Grain offerings and drink offerings are cut off from the house of the Lord. The priests are in mourning, those who minister before the Lord. The fields are ruined, the ground is dried up, the grain is destroyed, the new wine is dried up, the oil fails. Despair, you farmers, wail, you vine growers, grieve for the wheat and the barley, because the harvest of the field is destroyed. The vine is dried up, and the fig tree is withered. The pomegranate, the palm, and the apple tree, all the trees of the field are dried up. Surely the joy of mankind is withered away. Put on sackcloth, O priests, and mourn. Wail, you who minister before the altar. Come, spend the night in sackcloth, you who minister before my God. For the grain offerings and drink offerings are withheld from the house of your God. Declare a holy fast, call a sacred assembly, summon the elders and all who live in the land to the house of the Lord your God, and cry out to the Lord. Alas for that day, for the day of the Lord is near. It will come like destruction from the Almighty. Has not the food been cut off before our very eyes? Joy and gladness from the house of our God. The seeds are shriveled beneath the clods. The storehouses are in ruins. The granaries have been broken down, for the grain has dried up. Now remember, this has not happened. They've just had a locust invasion, obviously. And he's relating this locust invasion is what seems to be happening, because again, when you read through all these prophecies, you notice that when he talks about for the day of the Lord, alas for that day, and he mentions it again, you know you're speaking of this final redemption time. Excuse me. I've had we're in spring and I've got allergies and my nose is running and I sound terrible. So anyway, the storehouses are in ruin, the granaries have been broken down, and all this is being related to this time of ruin. The locusts have taken everything. And that's why I want to get through this so I can go to a second prophet, hundreds of years later, a couple of hundred years later anyway, and see the same sort of vision being portrayed. So it's of this, complete destruction. Food's been cut off, everybody's unhappy, and the ground's shriveled, the storehouses in ruin, granaries broken down, for the grain's dried up, how the cattle moan, the herds mill about because they have no pasture, even the flocks of sheep are suffering. To you, O Lord, I call, for fire has devoured the open pastures, and flames have burned up all the trees of the field. Even the wild animals pant for you. The streams of water have dried up, and fire has devoured the open pastures. Blow the trumpet in Zion, sound the alarm on my holy hill. Let all who live in the land tremble, for the day of the Lord is coming. It is close at hand, a day of darkness and gloom, a day of clouds and blackness. Like dawn spreading across the mountains, a large and mighty army comes, such as never was of old, nor ever will be in ages to come. Before them fire devours, behind them a flame blazes. Before them the land is like the Garden of Eden, behind them a desert waste. Nothing escapes them. They have the appearance of horses. They gallop along like cavalry. With a noise like that of chariots, they leap over the mountaintops. Like a crackling fire, consuming stubble, like a mighty army drawn up for battle. At the sight of them, nations are in anguish. Every face turns pale. They charge like warriors. They scale walls like soldiers. They all march in line, not swerving from their course. We've gone over this verse when we were talking about this end time picture of what the Mahdi army will do. Mm-hmm. They charge like warriors. They scale walls like soldiers. Mm-hmm. Who could that be? The people, the men, going like warriors. They charge like warriors. They scale walls like soldiers. They all march in a line, not swerving from their course. They do not jostle each other. Each marches straight ahead. They plunge through defenses without breaking ranks. They rush upon the city. They run along the wall. They climb into the houses. Like thieves, they enter through the windows. Before them, the earth shakes. The sky trembles. The sun and moon are darkened, and the stars no longer shine. The Lord thunders at the head of his army. His forces are beyond number, and mighty are those who obey his command. Is that the Lord with the 100 million that you hear about in Revelation? The day of the Lord is great. It is dreadful. Who can endure it? Even now, declares the Lord, return to me with all your heart, with fasting and weeping and mourning. Rend your heart and not your garments. Return to the Lord your God, for he is gracious and compassionate, slow to anger and abounding in love, and he relents from sending calamity. Who knows? He may turn and have pity and leave behind a blessing, grain offerings and drink offerings for the Lord your God. Blow the trumpet in Zion, declare a holy fast, call a sacred assembly, gather the people, consecrate the assembly, bring together the elders, gather the children, those nursing at the breast. Let the bridegroom leave his room and the bride her chamber. Let the priests who minister before the Lord weep between the temple porch and the altar. Let them say, spare your people, O Lord. Remember when he's saying this now, these guys are a mighty nation. inherited from David and Solomon, all the conquering now, and down through their evil kings who have gone away from God. And what's he going to do with them? He's been telling them in the prophets, I'm going to divorce you, I'm going to scatter you, the king of the north's going to come and get you, you're going back to Egypt, right? All these things that are going to happen to him. And of course it hasn't happened yet, but so let them say, spare your people, O Lord. Do not make your inheritance an object of scorn, a byword among the nations. Why should they say among the peoples, where is their God?
I mean, this is exactly what Neuberger is telling them right now.
Well, I'm relating it more to the Christian vision of, and I have more to say about that later when we get to more of the pertinent parts, I think. But the idea that we're in this, we're in the right position. The fact is, the people say, where is this Christian God? Right? They've written the Christian God off completely.
Yeah.
Just like what he's saying, why should the people look at us and say, where is their God? How is no wonder these are the prophets they wanted to kill and shut up. What are you saying? We're in charge. I've got treaties with Egypt. We have an army. We have, Samaria is our capital. All these places they mention, like Gilbeah and other, must be very, strongholds of religious importance and such, because God says, don't go there. Don't go to this place. Those things are coming down, right? Is what the prophets are saying. No wonder they didn't listen to the prophets. Just like no one wants to listen to me in the Christian church. Say, hey, you're patting yourself on the back for taking a gift without taking on the command that comes with it. If indeed we suffer as he suffered, Paul says in Romans, we are then sanctified and justified and all these things by his works. So if indeed we suffer as he suffered, well, how did he suffer? He gave of himself. So anyway, I want to get through these scriptures, because I remember never having these mean anything to me as a Christian. Like it's all just filler. And yet now when I read it, I find this is where all the richness is, because it's the story. It's the story laid out before it even happened. And then we, unlike them, have history that fills it all in with the flesh and blood, so that it's so meaningful. So yeah, at the end of this thought, let them say, spare your people, O Lord. He's calling for everybody to start mourning, basically. Mourning. Here we are, we have all this power, but they should be mourning, saying, spare your people. Don't make your inheritance an object of scorn, a byword among the nations. Why should they say among the peoples, where is their God? Then the Lord will be jealous for his land and take pity on his people. Then when? After they've scourged them and there's so few left. Then the Lord will be jealous for his land and take pity on his people. The Lord will reply to them, I am sending you grain, new wine, and oil, enough to satisfy you fully. Never again will I make you an object of scorn to the nations. I will drive the northern army far from you, pushing it into a parched and barren land, with its front columns going into the eastern sea, and those in the rear into the western sea. And its stench will go up, its smell will rise. Surely he has done great things. Be not afraid, O land. Be glad and rejoice. Surely the Lord has done great things. Be not afraid, O wild animals, for the open pastures are becoming green. Remember, they were scorched. The trees are bearing their fruit. The fig tree, in other words, things are coming back. The Lord's bringing it back for you. The trees are bearing their fruit. The fig tree and the vine yield their riches. Be glad, O people of Zion. Rejoice in the Lord your God, for he has given you the autumn rains in righteousness. He sends you abundant showers, both autumn and spring rains, as before. The threshing floors will be filled with grain. The vats will overflow with new wine and oil. I will repay you for the years the locusts have eaten, the great locust and the young locust, the other locust and the locust swarm, my great army that I sent among you. my great army that I sent among you. You will have plenty to eat until you are full, and you will praise the name of the Lord your God, who has worked wonders for you. Never again will my people be shamed. Then you will know that I am in Israel, that I am the Lord your God, and that there is no other. Never again will my people be shamed. And afterward, pardon me, I will pour out my spirit on all people. See, when is this now? And afterward I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy. Your old men will dream dreams. Your young men will see visions. Even on my servants, both men and women, I will pour out my spirit in those days. I will show wonders in heaven. I will show wonders in the heavens and on the earth, blood and fire and billows of smoke. The sun will be turned to darkness and the moon to blood before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. Now, when is that? See, that's not this tribulation time. We've already passed that. He brought everybody back here. Never again already. We're at never again will his people be shamed, which means Jesus is back on Mount Zion. The nations are looking to him, fitting it in with all the story that we know. He's saved his remnant. He's made Jerusalem a blessing. We'll find out in more of these prophecies that though the rest of the earth be scorched around it, he will protect his house. Jerusalem will not be destroyed in this battle. And that's where this new center of the world government under Jesus in this millennial kingdom will start. And afterward, after all this is happening, right? Because you will have plenty to eat. Let's back up here. Verse 26 in the second chapter of Joel. You will have plenty to eat until you are full, and you will praise the name of the Lord your God, who has worked wonders for you. Never again will my people be shamed. Then you will know that I am in Israel, that I am the Lord your God, and that there is no other. Never again will my people be shamed. And afterward, I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy, your old men will dream dreams, blah, 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 blah. I will pour out my spirit in those days, show wonders in heaven and on earth, blood and fire and billows of smoke, sun turned to darkness, moon to blood, before the coming of the great and dreadful day. So that would be when? Now you got, according to Revelation, millennial kingdom, and then you've got little season. Then you've got the day of the Lord when he raises everybody and judges everybody. So the way I'm seeing this is during the millennial kingdom, he's going to pour out his spirit. There'll be wonders and everybody's going to know God. And there's other evidence for it where it says that the knowledge of the Lord will be in the earth in those days. And so this is what I equate to. This is what's going to go on afterward during the millennial kingdom and into that next set. Remember, we got thousands of years again before that before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord, when everybody's judged and all death's thrown away and everybody's judged. And everyone who called them, the sun will be turned to darkness, the moon to blood before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. And everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. For on Mount Zion and in Jerusalem there will be deliverance, as the Lord has said, among the survivors whom the Lord calls. Okay, so there can't be deliverance on Mount Zion for the remnant of Jews fleeing to the place prepared for them. They flee from Jerusalem to the place in the desert prepared for them. Mount Zion becomes a place of deliverance for the world in the millennial kingdom. So that's where this is for the survivors, the people that are calling on everyone that calls on the name of the Lord in those days, after the young men have seen visions and the old men have dreamed dreams for 1,000 years. Mm-hmm. The prophecy and the installation of God.
Well, the whole thing over again, the prophecies that are for the future, for the people that are living during that 1,000 years.
In those days and at that time, when I restore the fortunes of Judah and Jerusalem, I will gather all nations and bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat. There I will enter into judgment against them concerning my inheritance, my people Israel, for they scattered my people among the nations and divided up my land. They cast lots for my people and traded boys for prostitutes. They sold girls for wine that they might drink. Now what have you against me, O Tyre and Sidon and all you regions of Philistia? Are you repaying me for something I have done? If you were paying me back, I will swiftly and speedily return on your own heads what you have done. For you took my silver and my gold and carried off my finest treasures to your temples. You sold the people of Judah and Jerusalem to the Greeks, that you might send them far away from their homeland. See, I am going to rouse them out of the places to which you sold them, and I will return on your own heads what you have done. I will sell your sons and daughters to the people of Judah, and they will sell them to the Sabeans, a nation far away. The Lord has spoken. Okay, so how's this for see now, in those days, now is this during the millennial kingdom payback? Is this after the millennial kingdom? Because that's what it sounds like to me. This sounds like the time of this judgment. Although it could be what's coming in this millennial, this 7-year judgment on the Jews, but it doesn't seem like that to me. We're beyond, his vision is beyond that. In those days, at that time, when is this? When everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. For on Mount Zion and in Jerusalem there will be deliverance, as the Lord has said, among the survivors whom the Lord calls. In those days and at that time, when I restore the fortunes of Judah and Jerusalem. See, when is that? When does he restore the fortunes? Is that the beginning of the millennial kingdom? Is it the end of the millennial kingdom? Is that when heaven comes to reside in Jerusalem? He's going to gather all the nations to the valley of Jehoshaphat. Now, is that the same as gathering the nations to Armageddon for judgment?
Well,
because
the valley of Jehoshaphat means the valley of judgment.
Yeah, right. So, but that's what I mean. So is this Armageddon, or is this a different judgment that he's talking about? Now, what have you against me, O Tyre and Sidon, and all you regions of Philistia? Are you repaying me for something that I did, as in the 7-year tribulation? When I leveled all your lands and turned them to nothing, but now they've come back. Now it's 1,000 years later, and the Greens returned, and everything. And now are you coming after me again? So I remember in Revelation, Christianity's always learned this story that it somehow ends with the second coming of Christ. But no, that's just there's another link in this very long, thousands years chain from our perspective. Mm-hmm. The time to Christ is the second coming is no sooner from the advent of Adam and Eve, it would seem, than this final judgment, this final act of revelation, and this coming of heaven down to earth. We're still thousands of years from that. Christians act like it's coming the week after Jesus. That's the way I learned it.
Yeah.
Right? Jesus comes again, splits the mountain, kills everybody but the Christians, and brings heaven down to live on earth. And the Christians rule and reign, who? Each other? So there leaves no room for the actual idea that Christ comes a second time, saves the remnant of the Jews, like he said, mm-hmm. to set up Jerusalem the way it was supposed to be when he led them out of Egypt. This is all just like the 40 years in the desert thing played out longhand, mm-hmm. so that when he comes again, he sets them up in Jerusalem like they were supposed to be, and now they are a blessing to the nations. Now that goes on for 1,000 years before he says, okay, let's try this again. Let's let that devil out, or let's raise all the people now that used to follow Baal and everybody else and send everybody back to their corners, and let's start all this again and see if you can hang on to my word again, right? Because in those days and at that time, he said, everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. For on Mount Zion and in Jerusalem there will be deliverance. Okay, so see, because he's going to, I am going to rouse them out of the places to which you sold them. You sold the Jews and Jerusalem to the Greeks,
The Greeks
that you
mean,
might send them far away from their homeland.
see, now that's, to me, that's bringing us into what's coming. That's who the Greek is. You see, the Syrian, because they are, they're sold one more time through this lie, through this series of lies that's being told that creates the Mahdi, that then comes against them.
Yes, and the idea of sending them far from their homeland.
Yes.
Remember, this is the Edomites and the Esau
Right.
trying to get that territory God said he was going to give to Isaac and his children,
Yeah.
Abraham. I give it to you and your seed for
Right.
an inheritance. So the whole fight is to,
Get rid of them again.
So, see, I'm going to rouse them out of the places to which you sold them, and I will return on your own heads what you have done. I will sell your sons and daughters to the people of Judah, and they will sell them to the Sabians, a nation far away. The Lord has spoken. Proclaim this among the nations. Prepare for war. Rouse the warriors. Let all the fighting men draw near and attack. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. If you remember before, they beat them into pruning
Into plow.
for 1,000 years. That's why
Right.
I'm saying this seems to me to be at the end of the 1,000-year time. Because now it's beat them back into swords and pruning hooks. Not them, but the other nations, because there are no swords. Let the weakling say, I am strong. Come quickly, all you nations, from every side and assemble there. Bring down your warriors, O Lord. Let the nations be roused. Let them advance into the valley of Jehoshaphat, for there I will sit to judge all the nations on every side. Swing the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come, trample the grapes, for the winepress is full and the vats overflow. So great is their wickedness. Multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision. For the day of the Lord is near in the valley of decision. The sun and moon will be darkened, and the stars no longer shine. The Lord will roar from Zion and thunder from Jerusalem. The earth and the sky will tremble, but the Lord will be a refuge for his people, a stronghold for the people of Israel. Then you will know that I, the Lord your God, dwell in Zion, my holy hill. Jerusalem will be holy, never again will foreigners invade her. So again, if this is at the end of the 1,000 years, that's why he's coming out of Jerusalem. Because he's been there 1,000 years, even though he hasn't had his temple there, the one that's coming from heaven eventually. His presence has been there, and the people have been counting on it and living by it for 1,000 years. They beat all the swords into pruning hooks and and into plowshares. And now he's telling the nations, take all them plowshares and pruning hooks and beat them into swords. Come on down. But the Lord fights them. See, he doesn't send a river like in the other case. The other prophets that we talked of, and we've seen how a river overtakes them, because that's what happens in this first coming, when his feet touch the mountain and the mountain splits and all. None of that's going on here. No splitting of mountains, no melting of mountains. Notice that?
Yeah.
Just the Lord roaring out of Zion, defeating the enemies. In that day, the mountains will drip new wine, and the hills will flow with milk. All the ravines of Judah will run with water. A fountain will flow out of the Lord's house and will water the valley of acacias. But Egypt will be desolate, Edom a desert waste, because of violence done to the people of Judah, in whose land they shed innocent blood. Judah will be inhabited forever, and Jerusalem through all generations. Their blood guilt, which I have not pardoned, I will pardon. The Lord dwells in Zion. End of story. That's why Joel's I think that he sees it all the way through like Revelation. That's why I wanted to bring that up. Let's not come to a complete decision on that yet, because now I wanted to, if we still have time. Yes, okay. So now I want to go forward to Zephaniah, which is a couple of 100 years later, also a prophet of Judah. Now we've already had the Assyrian bondage, and we're just about to get Nebuchadnezzar here in the next 20 years or so, according to at least the dating in Ryrie. that we've got Babylon coming under Nebuchadnezzar, but I find Zephaniah also is not really talking about Babylon at all, as you will see. The word of the Lord that came to Zephaniah, son of Cushai, the son of Gedaliah, the son of Amariah, the son of Hezekiah, during the reign of Josiah, son of Amon, king of Judah. I will sweep away everything from the face of the earth, declares the Lord. Now, this is why I found it an interesting parallel with Joel, who starts off with the locusts. Has anything like this ever been done? Tell your children and their children and what the locusts has left, the great locusts have eaten, what the great locusts, in other words, the locusts have taken every last thing. So how does Zephaniah start? I will sweep away everything from the face of the earth, declares the Lord. I will sweep away both men and animals. I will sweep away the birds of the air and the fish of the sea. The wicked will have only heaps of rubble when I cut off man from the face of the earth, declares the Lord. Now, this is clearly after the flood. So when is this sweeping away of everything? I will stretch out my hand against Judah and against all who live in Jerusalem. I will cut off from this place every remnant of Baal, the names of the pagan and the idolatrous priests, those who bow down on the roofs to worship the starry hosts, those who bow down and swear by the Lord and who also swear by Moloch, those who turn back from following the Lord and neither seek the Lord nor inquire of him. Now, of course, he's talking to these people at that time when he breaks back into cutting off these people who worship Baal. Because remember, they're still secure in Judah, but they're within about 20 years of Nebuchadnezzar coming. But what does this sweep away everything from the face of the earth? That's quite a claim. And it appears, at least if I'm getting the Ryrie commentary right, that he's quoting Genesis here, which is interesting because it's likening it to the flood, which the prophets tell us is what Jesus tells us as in the days of Noah. Mm-hmm. So I'm just trying to keep all the little strings loosely tied together. So those who bow down on the roofs worship the starry hosts that swear by the Lord and by Moloch, who don't seek the Lord or inquire of him. Be silent before the sovereign Lord, before the day of the Lord is near. See, again, here we are with this day of the Lord. The Lord has prepared a sacrifice. He has consecrated those he has invited. On the day of the Lord's sacrifice, I will punish the princes and the king's sons and all those clad in foreign clothes. On that day, I will punish all who avoid stepping on the threshold, who fill the temple of their gods with violence and deceit. On that day, declares the Lord, a cry will go up from the fish gate, wailing from the new quarter, and a loud crash from the hills. Wail, you who live in the market district. All your merchants will be wiped out. All who trade with silver will be ruined. At that time I will search Jerusalem with lamps and punish those who are complacent, who are like wine left on its dregs, who think, the Lord will do nothing, either good or bad. Their wealth will be plundered, their houses demolished. They will build houses but not live in them. They will plant vineyards but not drink the wine. The great day of the Lord is near and coming quickly. Listen, the cry on the day of the Lord will be bitter, the shouting of the warrior there. That day will be a day of wrath, a day of distress and anguish, a day of trouble and ruin, a day of darkness and gloom, a day of clouds and blackness, a day of trumpet and battle cry against the fortified cities and against the corner towers. I will bring distress on the people, and they will walk like blind men because they have sinned against the Lord. Their blood will be poured out like dust, and their entrails like filth. Neither their silver nor their gold will be able to save them on the day of the Lord's wrath. In the fire of his jealousy, the whole world will be consumed, for he will make a sudden end of all who live in the earth. This is how we know that it's not just Babylon he's talking about. Mm-hmm. Gather together, O shameful nation, before the appointed time arrives, and that day sweeps on like chaff, before the fierce anger of the the Lord comes upon you, before the day of the Lord's wrath comes upon you. Seek the Lord, all you humble of the land, you who do what he commands. Seek righteousness, seek humility. Perhaps you will be sheltered on the day of the Lord's anger. See, now that just to me is like a parallel for the Philadelphians. Hang on to what riches you have, and to the Laodiceans, I counsel you to buy from me fire, gold refined in the fire, which is that humility, that real righteousness of giving. So this is what he's telling them in this day. For the humble that are humble, seek the Lord, all you humble of the land, you who do what he commands. Seek righteousness, seek humility. Perhaps you will be sheltered on the day of the Lord's anger. Gaza will be abandoned, and Ashkelon left in ruins. At midday, Ashdod will be emptied, and Ekron uprooted. Woe to you who live by the sea, O Kerethite people. The word of the Lord is against you, O Canaan, land of the Philistines. I will destroy you, and none will be left. The land by the sea where the Kerethites dwell will be a place for shepherds and sheep pens. It will belong to the remnant of the house of Judah. There they will find pasture. In the evening they will lie down in the houses of Ashkelon. The Lord their God will care for them. He will restore their fortunes. I have heard the insults of Moab and the taunts of the Ammonites, who insulted my people and made threats against their land. Therefore, as surely as I live, declares the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, surely Moab will become like Sodom. Surely Moab will become like Sodom, the Ammonites like Gomorrah, a place of weeds and salt pits, a wasteland forever. Okay, now that hasn't happened yet. Not a wasteland forever. They're still living there. The remnant of my people will plunder them. The survivors of my nation will inherit their land. This is what they will get in return for their pride, for insulting and mocking the people of the Lord Almighty. The Lord will be awesome to them when he destroys all the gods of the land. The nations on every shore will worship him, everyone in its own land. You too, O Cushites, will be slain by my sword. He will stretch out his hand against the north and destroy Assyria, leaving Nineveh utterly desolate and dry as the desert. Flocks and herds will lie down there, creatures of every kind. The desert owl and the screech owl will roost on her columns. Their calls will echo through the windows. Rubble will be in the doorways. The beams of cedar will be exposed. This is the carefree city that lived in safety. She said to herself, I am, and there is none besides me. What a ruin she has become, a lair for wild beasts. All who pass by her scoff and shake their fists. Now, of course, the way I see it, this stuff hasn't happened yet. Nineveh did get destroyed in its day, but all this stuff that pertains to the wrath of the Lord and the forever, and the remnant of Judah possessing, they don't possess that land. We're talking about Syria today. We're talking about up there near, Aleppo and all these old places that are at war today. That's why I see this as being fulfilled in the millennial kingdom. These people are going to be reduced to rubble during the Great Tribulation, and for the 1,000 years they will be under the thumb of the Israelites, who will live in their land, because hardly any of them will be left. Now, this is what he says to Jerusalem. Chapter 3 of Zephaniah. Woe to the city of oppressors, rebellious and defiled. She obeys no one. She accepts no correction. She does not trust in the Lord. She does not draw near to her God. Her officials are roaring lions. Her rulers are evening wolves who leave nothing for the morning. Her prophets are arrogant. They are treacherous men. Her priests profane the sanctuary and do violence to the law. The Lord within her is righteous. He does no wrong. Morning by morning he dispenses his justice, and every new day he does not fail. Yet the unrighteous know no shame. I have cut off nations. Their strongholds are demolished. I have left their streets deserted, with no one passing through. Their cities are destroyed, no one will be left, no one at all. I said to the city, surely you will fear me and accept correction. Then her dwelling would not be cut off, nor all my punishments come upon her. But they were still eager to act corruptly in all they did. Therefore, wait for me, declares the Lord, for the day I will stand up to testify. I have decided to assemble the nations, to gather the kingdoms, and to pour out my wrath on them, all my fierce anger. The whole world will be consumed by the fire of my jealous anger. See, again, that's how you know that these things weren't already finished. They may have been prefigured. Something like it may have always been in the case, just as the 7 churches which are in Asia always are the type of Christian church that may exist. They exhibit those characteristics through all time. But there comes a time, a final time, when the church is Laodicean. There comes this final, in that day, when you get to the whole world consumed by the fire of my jealous anger. Then I will purify the lips of the peoples, that all of them may call on the name of the Lord and serve him shoulder to shoulder. See this? Now, when could we be talking about? Then I will purify the lips of the peoples, that all of them may call on the name of the Lord. Now, he just finished talking about the nations. Wait for the Lord. I've decided to assemble the nations, pour out my wrath. Whole world to be consumed by my... Then I will purify the lips of the peoples, that all of them may call. All of them may call on the name of the Lord and serve him shoulder to shoulder. From beyond the rivers of Cush, my worshipers, my scattered people, will bring me offerings. On that day you will not be put to shame for all the wrongs you have done to me, because I will remove from this city those who rejoice in their pride. Never again will you be haughty on my holy hill, but I will leave within you the meek and humble, who trust in the name of the Lord. See, now this is the way I'm seeing it. Zephaniah is talking about the great tribulation and the beginning of the millennial kingdom.
That's the way I'm seeing this.
Okay. Never again will you be haughty on my holy hill, but I will leave within you the meek and humble who trust in the name of the Lord. The remnant of Israel will do no wrong. They will speak no lies, nor will deceit be found in their mouth. They will eat and lie down, and no one will make them afraid. See, that's why this is still the millennial kingdom. Sing, O daughter of Zion. Shout aloud, O Israel. Be glad and rejoice with all your heart, O daughter of Jerusalem. The Lord has taken away your punishment. He has turned back your enemy. The Lord, the King of Israel, is with you. Never again will you fear any harm. On that day they will say to Jerusalem, do not fear, O Zion. Do not let your hands hang limp. The Lord your God is with you. He is mighty to save. He will take great delight in you. He will quiet you with his love. He will rejoice over you with singing. The sorrows for the appointed feasts I will remove from you. They are a burden and a reproach to you. At that time I will deal with all who oppressed you. I will rescue the lame and gather those who have been scattered. I will give them praise and honor in every land where they were put to shame. At that time I will gather you. At that time I will bring you home. I will give you honor and praise among all the peoples of the earth when I restore your fortunes before your very eyes, says the Lord. So that's Zephaniah's picture for Judah a couple hundred years after Joel's picture. But I find again them both stunningly similar. They start with absolute destruction, preaching that destruction is coming for the sins, but ending in this vision of utter protection, a life of righteousness and protection under God, which is just the opposite of where the prophecies start. Mm-hmm. And that's the common thread that I think is interesting, why the Old Testament prophets are so interesting to read, is they're not left in the past, because they all, you could almost go through them all and just read their last chapter And you find their last chapter ends in the same vision of restoration and some words of never again will it be like this, or always I will be in Jerusalem, always I will be their God. All the things that we know haven't happened yet. So that you know somewhere between the opening of that prophet's vision and the closing, we're still living in it. And so some speak, like Daniel, of course, very specifically, Isaiah, very specifically, Ezekiel, very specifically, things in this time. And some it's harder to tell where the vision leaves off the immediate concern, which was we have Assyria coming to take, Assyria is coming. We will be taken to bondage. Babylon is coming. You keep saying what the Lord won't do anything good or bad, but I'm telling you, get ready. We're all, you're going to build a house and not live in it. You're going to plant a vineyard and not drink its wine. Now, see, that's to those people, right? But when he then tells them their story, but then God will do this, he sees the story all the way out to the very end of the restoration.
Now what you should do is to just weave Paul through there, because we passed the time of the Christian era. In the picture of the Jews, they don't know anything about that, you see. But Paul does, because he's a Jew, so he weaves his story in there.
Yeah, but Paul's story is to recall the scriptures for the Jews that point out to them that not only was Jesus the servant, but that because of what they've done, he's going to give the promise to everybody else. I mean, that's
the part I wanted to weave through to the message to the Christians that's coming out of this book, that is literally reinforcing everything that John sees when he writes the Revelation. Because all of these things in Revelation are the things that are taking place through these prophets after they prophesy on what's going to happen to them next. Then they go into the future and it begins to lay out the things that are going on in Revelation that John is seeing.
Yes, but John's getting this finally from Jesus as it's like the cornerstone of all the prophecy of the past, where depending on where these prophets were in the journey, they were getting a vision that was pertinent to the journey. But that vision necessarily took them to the end of the journey. This is the part that's so sure that someone like, why you see how Roy Neuberger and the Orthodox Jews have this vision of restoration, because every single prophet has the end of their vision be one of restoration. God's going to save them. He's going to save a remnant for his name's sake, for the namesake of Jerusalem. He's going to make it good. He's going to make that city the capital city. So what can you say if you're a Jew, no matter what it looks like? Well, it's okay. God's not going to let it all be destroyed. Somehow he's going to come with his own power. He's going to bring angels from heaven with his own, what does it say? His own army is going to come, and he's going to do battle. He's going to restore. So that's the way you'd have to feel as a Jew. I'm relating it more to the Christian and the person of the modern time, of the darkness of this time, that the Christian church that keeps preaching this, everything's going to be all right. It's only going to be all right because there's a rapture taken out of the way. That's the whole point. The promise, the being in that body of Christ is to be snatched out of the way.
In your body.
Yes, to be taken out of the way of the coming tribulation that comes on all men, not just the Jews. The Jews have it coming for a specific reason, but all mankind has it coming as in the days of Noah. Mm-hmm. The Jews are going to be rescued as in the times of Egypt, a remnant with the miracles of God, the only thing that saves them, the very power of God, which means that they have to be brought to that. We have to see it come to the point where The Jews are literally, well, we don't have to see it, meaning during that 7-year tribulation, they will see the Jewish nation will come to the point of utter destruction. And only by the miraculous power of God, as in the times of Egypt, will the Jewish nation be led by God and saved by God, a remnant. That's the way that the prophecy goes. And that's how they're going to know that God is God, because it will only be by that power again, like it was in Egypt. That's how he is able to set them up on the mountain again, like he was able to coming out of Egypt when he could get Moses to go up on the mountain and get the tablets and have that righteousness be displayed. That's going to happen again now, but this time it won't be subject to frustration by man. This time when that law is set up on Mount Zion, it will be for good. That's what they have coming. That's what they're expecting, see? And so they're expecting their Messiah to do that. They didn't expect the Messiah to come and die first and set up this in-between. And when you really look at it, you see, I'm starting to see more all the time what Paul saw and teaches, he said, did God reject his people in Romans? Well, absolutely not, So this is the whole point. God didn't reject his people. He used their nature. This is what I'm seeing in this whole pattern, this cycle I'm always trying to push. Why the Christians are no better now. And when I say Christians, I mean all of us. I mean we who claim Jesus are in that same sort of category through time as the Jews were at the time of Christ, meaning the thing that was pure to us at one point has become this degraded over time out of our very nature and the nature of time. We've become, just like the house of Israel, immersed in idol worship, right? And what's our idol worship? Money, of course. Money's more important than Jesus. The proof is quite simple. Go give your neighbor half your money, or the needy. Maybe you live up in a nice neighborhood and your neighbor don't need it. So why don't you go cash out half of what's in the bank and just go give it to the housing project, or where they're feeding the poor. They're guaranteed that they're going to do more good with it than you're doing with it, just stuffed in your bank waiting to spend. Right? So come on, we're all a product of the environment, just like it became with the house of Israel, where they're scattered. That's why God has to make it this redemption that isn't, he doesn't say you're going to come alive and know me. I'm going to save you in that place where you've been scattered and where you're still off worshiping your idols. You're still like lions laying in wait out there. But when I save you, when you come to realize it's me, and then I will restore you from that place. But meanwhile, I don't think we can help it. We're all in this place where the whole context of our lives has been governed by idol worship. And so that's why it's not this great evil. It's only evil because it takes us away from God. And in that way, it is a great evil, but it's not our great evil. Our great evil is simply in the fact that my people perish through lack of knowledge.
Yeah, they don't believe what they're supposed to know.
Yes, they don't even know it because that's been hidden from them. It's been, and this is why it's always the leaders that are held responsible, because the people perish through lack of knowledge. They don't know. If the leaders after Moses and Joshua would have kept that, the people knowing who God was and why, it would, instead of leading them into this idol worship, allowing them to fall away from the law by making it okay that, what did Jesus tell them? You tell the people that whatever they might give to their father and mother, they could give as tribute to the church, and so you subvert the law. Instead of honor their father and mother, you have it given it to the church, so you make void the word of the Lord by your traditions. See, so this is because man is not good. No, not one. This is just the way we're built. So if you tie all these strings together, you get humankind in a position where they've been led astray from Genesis and Enoch through the Watchers, the sons of God, who were the very ones who taught us the ways of evil, or taught us the ways that have become our ways of war and of manipulation. And on down through the ages, it's taken God intervening, first wiping out all mankind through the flood and intervening, and then intervening again at Abraham to keep the knowledge alive, and then intervening again at Moses to save the people out of Egypt, and then intervening again at David to reestablish, get the temple built again through Solomon. And then now we get to the prophets, where I see how God doesn't intervene again until the Messiah. And so he keeps prophesying to them what's going to happen and how it's going to happen. So there might be this record. There might be this, the spirit of revelation is prophecy. And so the prophecies all take on this same characteristic, which is what the deeper message I'm trying to share to Christians. And that is we're deceived by the world into following after the things of the world. And it makes it almost impossible to follow God, so that God has to keep punishing and punishing and punishing, but that those punishments are really the mercy of God to keep us returning to him, to keep his life there available, rather than letting us blot it out completely, so that the whole story ends with him getting rid of all of the lies, all of the death, all of the sin, bundling all that up along with the lake of fire, or thrown into the lake of fire with death itself, so that there's nothing left but whatever God has created, whatever comes out of this, which is why the purpose to me seems to be love, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The only way for love to be known was for us to know good from evil. And so the whole history of this creation, the creation that Paul says in Romans, groans in anticipation of what's to be revealed in us. What's to be revealed in us? The knowledge of good and evil, and the ability to reconcile that, to redeem it, I suppose, through love. So anyway, that's why I keep exploring the Old Testament scriptures, as I find that they are really the link to the entire story that puts us properly in our moment of being the recipients of this grace at the moment when everything has gotten the worst that it can get. At the times are, if there were always antichrists, as Peter says, and as Paul says, but we're at the moment when the tribulation, the great tribulation, we're at the door of that time when black is white and white is black and everything. I mean, what should we anticipate as Christians? That somehow we're just standing in pureness? I mean, we are up to our ears in it, aren't we? The more I read in the Bible about this nation of wealth that the Israelites become, the more I can't find who could it be but the Anglo-American nations. Who has all this wealth and security in their armaments? You're right? Who lives a life worthy of what God calls them at the end? This nation so secure, and saying, when has there been anybody like me? Right? We seem to fit that bill, and the arrogance and the richness and all these things, again, that are paralleled in the Laodicean church, and in this idea that the Philadelphians' brotherly love has but a little strength left. This whole idea that you find out of the past of the nobility, righteousness, in that absolute chivalry of charity, of giving what you have, of putting yourself out for the needs of someone else. To be of
service to someone else, to everyone else.
And knowing that, like I say, if you read about Father Bienvenu, Father Welcome of the Victor Hugo's novel, Les Miserables, you won't find, in my view, a better characterization of the Christian ideal put into flesh and blood. Let every man who claims to be a Christian, stand up even to that picture of a faulty human form. Christ. I suppose we try and comparing ourselves with Christ is flawed, because we're comparing ourselves with divinity, a virgin birth of the very essence of God that had to live in human flesh, but had the perfect consciousness, had God's consciousness, had what they call the Christ consciousness going in, where we have the dirty, contaminated earthly consciousness going in. So it's a little bit unfair, but we do have as examples the ones that have followed Christ, that take all their earthly dirt and yet show that example. And, Father Damien of Molokai, Mother Teresa, the fictionalized Father Welcome of Les Miserables. What an incredible character. So anyway, the parallel I'm trying to draw is between the Old Testament problems that bring this whole thing on the Jews. Why is God so mad at them? What are they such a prostitute about? Why is Jesus so mad at the Laodiceans that it makes them want to vomit? What are
same reason.
Thank you, Dad. Last word, because that's we're beyond our time. So anyway, thanks, Dad.
Tony, this was really a great show, great revelation. I hope you folks are getting this. This is, I understand, this is the deep end of the pool, but this is where you've got to be if you want to understand the story, that revelation. Your scripture, Revelation, is relaying to you, because these are the reasons that Revelation is coming upon the Jews, in order that you might be taken out of the way.
And all the little details, see, because each of these prophets sees another detail. For instance, Joel obviously sees the famine. He starts with the locusts and the way everything's eaten, and our army that marches across and leaves scorched earth behind it. Mm-hmm. So there's a clue. I mean, this is how it's going to happen. The army's going to come and it doesn't sound like they're going to be a military conscripted army. It's people that move like warriors, right? So anyway, I'm enjoying this. I hope you are. BroSal.org is where all this stuff's at. And also there's other things that are shorter and sweeter that you can get a little taste for. The biblical insights there on the sign of Jonah and the Antichrist and the mark of the beast, things like that we try and help people see this viewpoint we're coming from, of taking Scripture outside of the traditional view, where everything is this one moment of Jesus coming again, the Antichrist coming against him. Jesus slays everybody, sets up his kingdoms, and the Christians live happily ever after. I mean, that's kind of what I got out of it for many years. Mm-hmm. And yet there's so much more to it, and most of that betrays a real misunderstanding of Scripture. It doesn't get past the surreal idea of an Antichrist, of an Armageddon, of a Messiah coming from heaven, and a redemption that's supernatural. All those things are true, but they're true within a framework that's very organic, and that comes all the way out of Genesis, comes all the way out of the flood. Why else does it relate it back to the times of Noah? Why else, when Jesus was in the grave, did he go to the people that have been waiting since the times of Noah? This is all of a piece from that first wiping out of the human race to this next one that our second prophet Zephaniah starts off with this picture of, I'm going to wipe everything from the face of the earth, all men and women. Okay, so anyhow.
Well, I just want to remind the folks, go to BroSal.org. Our books are there. They're free ebook downloads. They're really great books. And then by subscribing, you receive this right in your mail each week. And you can follow along with the interpretation and the story that the Bible is telling the Christians of today, and anybody else who wants to listen.
That's right. BroSal.org, and of course, Dad does the show every Sunday, the Sunday gathering at the Storehouse, and we look at the Middle East scene. For many years now, since basically 2000, when they met in Sharm el-Sheikh to decide, the Arabs and Jews, what to do about their situation. Ever since then, and since 2001, 9/11, when we got into the war, we've been following the development as we come closer to this opening of Revelation with a peace and the 7-year covenant of Daniel that's confirmed with many. So join us for that at BroSal.org on Sundays. Thanks for being here. Just don't forget, there's only one command of the Lord. If you follow that master, Jesus, he says, do unto others. And he says, love your neighbor as yourself. That's it. So if you go find someone needy to help, then you're doing everything that the heart of God